Chapter 12. A few days later, Julia found work at night, washing dishes. We also cared for Marta's daughters, and I continued to work at the church and at other cleaning jobs. We sent all the money we could to Mama and Teresa, and with the food from the church, we grew stronger. We received another letter from Mama saying that Teresa was weaker, and we wrote and sent a little more money. As I sealed the letter, Julia looked at me, her face strained. "I just think we've got to get them here soon. I'm so scared they won't make it." She was finished nursing Ramona and laid the baby down on her lap. "I know what I need to do, but I can't do it." "What do you mean?" I said. She pressed her forehead with the palm of her hand, and I saw such a look of anguish, my stomach twisted. "Julia, what are you talking about? What else could we do?" Ramona began to cry, and I picked her up. "Don't ask me," Julia said. "Pretend I didn't say it." She stood up and left the room. I jiggled Ramona until she was quiet. I didn't understand what Julia was saying, but I was frightened. However, late in the afternoon, Tomas showed up at our door, excited. "I couldn't believe it," he said. "I just saw one of your drawings of saints on wood in the window of a different store than where you sell them. One was marked sold, and the other said $39. $39, I gasped. Yes, that's what the tag said." Tomas came in and sat on one of the couches. So I went in and asked about them. The salesman told me they were done by a young woman who'd become an important artist. "Me?" "Yes, you!" he exclaimed, shaking his hands in the air. His blue eyes were shining and his eyebrows arched with excitement. I stared at Tomas, almost unable to understand what he'd said. My work, $39. Money to bring Mama and Teresa? An important artist? I might really be an artist. I sat down on the couch next to him, speechless. After Tomas left, I searched for wood until it was dark. This time I'd make the store owner pay me much more for my drawings. The man with the guitar visited our apartment again that evening, and before Julia went to work, we all sang happy songs together. While Ramona and Oscar were sleeping, I wrote Mama again and told her about my drawings. The next day was sunny and the sky was clear. In the late afternoon, Julia took Ramona, Marta's daughters, and Oscar out behind the building while I stayed inside to work on a drawing. They were still there when Tomas knocked on the door. I opened it, excited about showing him the outline I'd made on the wood. "There's a letter from Mexico," he said. I took it and sat on the couch. "Julia, Maria, and Oscar," the letter from Mama's friend began. "My heart aches to tell you this, but your mother has been taken. She's gone, sent back to your country." I started shaking so badly that Tomas took the letter from me and stared at it himself. "Where's Julia?" he asked. My mind was blank, and I couldn't stop shaking. A short time later, Julia was back in our room on her knees praying, and Oscar was crying. "Maria, lie down," Thomas said to me. "I'm going for Marta and Donna Elena." I leaned down on the couch as he placed a blanket over me. Dizzy, I closed my eyes and thought Mama was beneath the amate tree at home, calling up to me as I climbed up the tree higher until I finally was alone in the sky and Mama had vanished. I rolled up into a ball underneath the blanket and did not move, seeing the Virgin's eyes. They stared ahead blankly, like she didn't care. Time passed. Then someone was shaking me hard. I sat up and opened my eyes. Julia was kneeling in front of me, her hands gripping my arms. Donna Elena, Tomas, and several men were praying. "Maria," Julia said, squeezing my arms tighter. "The letter says Teresa is still in Mexico, with Beatrice, the woman who wrote. She can't keep Teresa long. We must get her." "I don't know if we can," I said dully. "Don't say that." "I don't know if we can," I repeated. "Maybe we're all going to die, like Papa and Ramon, now Mama. Maybe the Virgin doesn't care. Maybe she's just a lie." "That's not true," Julia shouted. "It's not true. It's not true." I turned away from her. "They're dead. Now Mama probably too." Julia slapped me. I looked at her, and she slapped me again. Stop it, she yelled into my face. Oscar flung himself against her and started screaming. I saw Donna Elena take Julia by the shoulders and move her away. I shouted back at Julia. "Mama's gone. One by one, we'll all be gone. We won't make it." My sister seemed to quiver in front of my eyes, her hand still in the air, ready to hit me again, but I felt the tears on my face. Then Julia reached for me, and I threw myself forward into her arms. "Mama, Mama," I cried as she held me. "I want Mama. I can't save the family. We need Mama. Poor Mama." That night, the others had gone, and the men were all in the other room to give us privacy. Oscar's eyes were closed, but he gulped air in his sleep. I lay awake on the mattress, and Julia sat next to me, nursing the baby. Her face seemed wasted. "We may never know what happens to Mama," she whispered, and sat in silence for a few more moments. The only sound was the sucking of the baby. "But we can't stop hoping," she said, putting the baby down. I began crying again. "I miss Mama and Papa, Julia. I don't like to let you know how much. And Papa said I was supposed to save the family. Then I didn't get enough money to bring Mama and Teresa. Do you think God's punishing us by taking Mama?" "No, little sister. God wouldn't do that." "Then why? Why would Mama get taken?" I sat back up. "She's always so good. She always believed so much. Why Mama?" "I don't know, Maria. I don't understand." Julia shook her head. Then she looked down at her baby and over at me again. "I'll leave Ramona with you and go for Teresa. We'll just have to get the money to give Ramona canned milk in bottles." I stared at Julia blankly and realized what Papa would want me to do. "No, not you," I said. "We could never buy canned milk. I'm the one who needs to get Teresa." Julia's eyes became tender. "No, I can't let you, little sister. There's just too much danger. Marta and some of the men are looking for rides south for me. I'll go, not you." "But you can't do it. Ramona's too little. She needs you. We don't have money for milk, and I know more English than you do. I can read and write. I'm stronger. I'm the one who should go." Oscar woke and started sobbing again, so I pulled him onto my lap and rocked him back and forth. Now the baby began to cry. Julia jiggled her in her arms distractedly. "No, Maria, no. Think what it'll be like to travel with Teresa. Think. You couldn't even take her in a crate. My immigration would hear you. I've got to be the one." My face and body burned. "Julia, I'm going, not you. You can't stop me. If you try to, I'll leave tonight." "Don't say that," Julia nearly shouted. "You just feel guilty because Papa said you were supposed to take care of us. Do you have any idea what it would do to me if I lost you?" I became very calm. "You know I can do it better than you, Julia, and Ramona needs you." Julia glanced at her baby and back to me. "But you'll both get caught, you and Teresa. We'll lose you both." "No, you won't," I said. "We'll make it." The baby quieted. Julia quit shaking her head and stared at me. Her eyes locked into mine, searching back and forth for my weakness. But I was strong. Finally, she turned her face away, sat in silence for a minute, and whispered, "Then you'll go, with money. I can't send you without it." I was puzzled. "How?" "I won't tell you, but I'll be gone at night. You'll say nothing of it to Marta or Donna Elena or Tomas. Nothing to any of them, you hear?" My eyes widened, and my mouth dropped open. "No, Julia." I flushed like wine. "Not like that." Julia glanced around the curtain, and I pressed one side of Oscar's head against my chest, my hand covering his other ear. "I should have done it earlier. If I had, they'd be here. Mama wouldn't be gone." "There must be some other way. It'll kill you." "Well, I can't think of anything else." Her voice cracked. "You're never going to ask me the details, understand?" "What about my drawings? I can keep working on them, sell more." "It won't be fast enough. I should have done it earlier. I just couldn't." She choked on the final words. I didn't sleep that night, but lay awake on our mattress, watching Julia, who was still, but also not sleeping. "Mama's gone," I thought, "and Julia won't make it. She'll never recover." Julia had such dark circles under her eyes when she lay nursing Ramona the next morning that I wondered if her face would ever be beautiful again. Oscar whimpered on the mattress, and I fed him a tortilla as he lay there. My body felt so heavy I could barely move my arms or legs. "Julia, I need to go to church to clean," I said a little later. She nodded without looking at me. Feeling sick to my stomach, I walked through the streets to the church. As I pulled open the heavy church doors, I knew I had to get some money. The interior was dark and cool. I knelt and crossed myself as I walked past the altar into the foyer where Our Lady stood, serene and lovely. Again, I lit a candle and fell on my knees. Our Lady, I prayed. Please help us. Save Mama. Help me get some money so Julia doesn't hurt herself so bad. Make Father Jonathan know what to do. Forgive me for sometimes not trusting you. Then I said to the statue, I've got to go find Father Jonathan now. Please help him figure it out. I crossed myself and went to the office. The blonde secretary sat at her desk and smiled when she saw me. I tried to speak to her in English. Please see Father Jonathan. Important. No, she said, speaking slowly. He is gone, away, gone to big meeting, for 2 weeks. Can I help? I felt the blood leave my face and my eyes widen. No, not gone, I said. To myself I cried, Our Lady, why won't you help us? Father Jonathan, I begged again out loud. The blonde woman answered, Gone, he is gone. Can I help? I shook my head, backed out of the room, and ran into the sanctuary until I could see Our Lady. Her face still stared serenely ahead, as if she didn't notice me. As if Julia and Mama didn't even matter. Why? Why? I yelled at her, my voice echoing off the walls. I ran around the sanctuary trying to find something to steal, but everything was fastened down. Finally, I looked back at Our Lady. You don't care about any of us, I shouted as I went out the door. Sitting on the church steps with my face in my hands, I cried for Julia and Mama. I was no help. I couldn't even think of anything to steal. Finally, I looked up. The Quetzal lady was staring at me. Her shawl was in tatters. She had deep circles beneath her eyes, and she was shaking. What's wrong? I said. I've come to warn you, dearie, she responded, lifting her trembling hand. What are you talking about? They say they can't see spirits, but I can. I'm scared for you, dearie. She reached for me with both hands. I don't understand. Turn to the wise ones. Don't be talking to stiff old boards, and don't be running off in no fool's direction. You young ones can be dumb, dumb as shadows in the wind. I stared at her piercing old eyes, then I pictured Donna Elena. She nodded as if she knew what I was thinking. I left the Quetzal lady standing alone on the church steps, her tattered shawl draped around her shoulders. When Donna Elena opened her apartment door, I stood with my head bowed. Donna Elena, I said softly, I need you to tell me what to do. She led me into her kitchen. I thought her face looked much older, as if she too had slept little. She handed me a cup of coffee and sat next to me at the table. I couldn't look into her eyes. I don't know what to do, I said. I'm the one going for Teresa, but Julia's going to get me money. She told me not to tell anyone how she's going to get it, but I'm afraid for her. My face burned with the fire of betrayal, and I stared at the table. She doesn't know I came to see you. Donna Elena wiped the back of her hand across her forehead, pushed back her chair, and walked to her kitchen window. She said nothing for a long time, and I was too ashamed to look at her. Finally, she sat back down at the table, laying her hands out flat and staring at them. I should have helped more, she said. Her voice was husky and strained. We've got to stop her. After what Julia went through with the Guardias, she might not recover from doing it. She sat quietly a little longer. I'll tell my San Isidro. Your San Isidro? But you said it was your great-grandmother's. Yes. It's the most valuable thing I have. It's rare. There are almost no others. I had it priced at an art dealer's. She sighed. It's what I can do. I've seen Julia suffering. She put her soft hand on mine. I love you, little Maria. You and your brother and sister. You'll need all the strength you have to get Teresa. You don't need to worry about Julia, too. Gracias, I whispered. Gracias, Dona Elena. Dona Elena went into her front room and brought back the carving of the saint in a stable with a bull and angel. She set it on the table. The saint's body was firm and slim, as Julia's husband's had been, but his face looked kind and tired, like Papa's. I looked into Dona Elena's face. You said it was all you had from when you were little. She nodded. That's why I want you to look at it very carefully before I sell it. Sometimes I can still hear the wind in it and smell the grasses, and I want you to know them. So I stared at the old carving, memorizing its details, until I felt the wind. I stared longer, and the herbs in Dona Elena's kitchen merged together. I smelled strange plants from far away, and could hear children singing in processions. I'll come to your apartment later today with the money, Dona Elena whispered. Go to my spot. I thanked her, went home, and waited, thinking about Mama and wondering about Teresa. Julia and I didn't look at each other, and when Oscar cried at times, I held him in my arms and rocked him back and forth. Early that afternoon, Dona Elena came to our door. I glanced at Julia. She was watching me. Dona Elena walked over to Julia, whose face had lost its color. I have some money saved, she said. $300. Probably enough for you or Maria to get your sister. She held out her hand with the money. Julia began to cry. Are you sure, Dona Elena? We shouldn't take your money. Yes, I'm sure, child. I want you to have it. She reached for Julia and held her in her arms. I stepped forward. I'm going, Dona Elena, not Julia. Then I dropped onto the couch, dizzy with relief. That day I grieved for Mama, but thanked God for saving Julia. I went to talk to the secretary at the church the next day, before beginning my cleaning. Are you okay? She asked slowly, her face showing concern. I nodded, then said in English, I will be gone. A while. My sister get food, clean. Need Father Jonathan to pray for my mother. Tears came to my eyes, and I crossed myself, then repeated the statement twice until the secretary nodded. Pausing every few words, she attempted to talk with me. Father Jonathan, trying to find help for people like you. Big meeting. Church people. To make it safe for you. She said it 2 more times, and I answered, Gracias. Tell Father Jonathan, muchas gracias. I thought, hope for us, people like us, as he had talked about before? Exhaustion hit me as I began to dust the sanctuary. I sat down on a pew for a moment, my arms just hanging loose. Then I stood up and went on with my work. Finally, I turned to Our Lady, but I couldn't look her in the face. Thank you for saving Julia, I whispered. Thank you. And I'm sorry that I yelled and thought you didn't care. I glanced up at her face for a second. It still just stared forward, her eyes not blinking, her mouth not moving. Please don't punish us for what I did. I promise I'll always believe. I backed away, but as the church doors closed behind me, I doubted again.